Let me start with something I see all the time. People are fasting. They're trying to lower insulin. They want to burn visceral fat. They've heard about autophagy and cellular repair. But then the question comes up every single morning, Doctor, what can I drink without breaking my fast? And that question matters more than most people realize because fasting is not just about skipping food. Fasting is about shifting the body out of constant growth mode and into repair mode. When you eat, especially frequently, your body activates growth pathways. Insulin rises, a pathway called mTOR turns on. Cells focus on building, storing, and reproducing. That's normal, that's necessary. But if you are always eating, you're always in growth mode. Autophagy is the opposite state. But before I tell you everything, I just have a small request. If you're deciding to watch this lecture, please make sure you stay till the very end because if you miss some context, you may end up doing everything right but mess up on some of the small details that matter the most. Now, autophagy is your body's internal cleaning system. I often describe it as a microscopic housekeeping crew that lives inside every cell. When nutrients are low and insulin falls, this crew goes to work. It removes damaged proteins, it recycles broken mitochondria, it clears cellular debris. It's not dramatic, it's quiet, but it's one of the most powerful longevity mechanisms we have. When you fast properly, insulin drops low enough for this cleanup process to begin. Cells stop focusing on growth and start focusing on repair. The problem is that small, innocent habits in the morning can interrupt this shift. A splash of cream, a sweetener, a flavored drink, even certain healthy beverages can spike insulin just enough to pause fat burning and autophagy. That doesn't mean you have to suffer with nothing. There are three simple morning drinks that support fasting instead of sabotaging it. They help hydration, metabolism, gut function, and insulin stability without pushing you back into storage mode. But before we get to those three, I want you to understand something clearly. The drink itself is not magic. It's the hormonal environment that matters. If insulin stays low, fat burning continues. If insulin rises meaningfully, fat burning pauses, autophagy slows, and growth pathways reactivate. That's the main biological switch. In this lecture, I'm going to explain exactly why black coffee, lemon water, and apple cider vinegar, when used correctly, can support fasting rather than break it. We'll also talk about timing, because when you drink them matters just as much as what you drink. And I'll show you how to combine hydration, delayed caffeine, light movement, and structured fasting into a simple morning framework that enhances visceral fat loss and cellular repair. No extremes, just a simple routine that you can rely on. Let's begin with the most underestimated tool in metabolic health: water. After 7 to 8 hours of sleep, your body wakes up mildly dehydrated. During the night, you lose fluid through breathing and perspiration. Cortisol naturally rises in the early morning to help you wake up. Blood sugar may rise slightly as well. If the first thing you do is reach for coffee, especially strong coffee, you stimulate the nervous system before restoring fluid balance. Hydration should come first. When you drink plain water in the morning, you are not breaking your fast. There are no calories, there's no insulin response, there's no activation of growth pathways. Instead, you are supporting circulation, kidney function, lymphatic drainage, and cellular repair. Autophagy requires a calm, low insulin environment. Water supports that environment. Now, many people ask me about lemon water. Does lemon break a fast? A squeeze of fresh lemon in water contains a very small amount of natural sugars, but in the quantities typically used, just a wedge or two, the insulin response is negligible in most people. It does not meaningfully interrupt fat burning. What it can do, however, is stimulate digestion gently. Lemon water increases saliva production and may support stomach acid release. For individuals who struggle with bloating or sluggish digestion, this can help prime the digestive system without triggering a full metabolic feeding response. But I want to be clear, lemon water is not a fat burning miracle. It does not detox your liver in some magical way. Your liver detoxifies perfectly well on its own. What lemon water does is support hydration and digestive readiness. That's it, and sometimes that's enough. Hydration in the morning also reduces what many people misinterpret as hunger. Often, what feels like morning hunger is mild dehydration combined with habitual eating patterns. If you hydrate first and wait 20 to 30 minutes, you may find the hunger softens. This helps extend your fasting window naturally, without struggle. Now, here's something important. Adding sugar, honey, or fruit juice to your morning drink changes everything. Even small amounts of concentrated sugar spike insulin quickly in a fasted state. Remember, in fasting, we are protecting a low insulin environment. Even tiny insulin spikes can temporarily shift you back toward glucose metabolism and away from fat oxidation. So, your first drink of the morning should be simple: water, or water with a squeeze of lemon. Nothing sweet, nothing creamy, nothing artificial. Think of it as preparing the internal terrain. If you're still here listening to me, comment below the word yes, and I'll know how many of you are serious about this informative lecture. And if you're enjoying the information so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave me a like on this video. Now we'll talk about the most debated fasting drink of all, coffee. And I'll explain why timing your coffee may be just as important as whether you drink it at all, because this is the drink that creates the most confusion during fasting. Some people believe coffee accelerates fat burning and boosts autophagy dramatically. Others believe it completely ruins a fast. The truth, as always in physiology, is more nuanced. Black coffee by itself contains almost no calories. In most individuals, it does not produce a significant insulin spike. That means, technically, from a metabolic standpoint, plain black coffee does not break the fast. But that's only part of the story. Coffee stimulates the nervous system. It increases adrenaline, it increases cortisol. In a fasted state, this can temporarily enhance fat mobilization. Fatty acids are released from storage and used as fuel. That sounds beneficial. However, timing matters. When you wake up, your body already experiences a natural rise in cortisol called the cortisol awakening response. This is healthy. It helps you feel alert and energized. If you immediately add caffeine on top of that natural surge, you amplify the stress signal. For some people, that leads to jitteriness, anxiety, or a mid morning crash. When cortisol spikes excessively, insulin sensitivity can temporarily decrease. That's not catastrophic, but over time, repeatedly stacking caffeine onto an already elevated stress response can create instability. That's why I often recommend delaying coffee for 60 to 90 minutes after waking. Hydrate first. Let your natural cortisol peak and begin to decline. Then introduce coffee if you choose to drink it. This creates a smoother hormonal curve. Now let's address what breaks the fast. Adding cream, milk, sugar, flavored syrups, or even certain keto creamers absolutely changes the metabolic response. Fat alone produces a smaller insulin spike than carbohydrates, but it still activates digestive pathways. It also stimulates mTOR to some degree. If your goal is deep autophagy, strict black coffee is the cleaner option. If your goal is simply maintaining a fat burning state and extending your fasting window, small amounts of fat may not completely derail progress, but they reduce the purity of the fast. Artificial sweeteners are more complicated. In some individuals, they trigger insulin release. In others, they stimulate cravings later in the day. Even if calories are zero, the brain may respond as if sweetness predicts incoming energy. And remember, fasting works through hormonal signaling. Autophagy thrives in simplicity. So, if you choose coffee during a fast, keep it plain, delay it slightly, and pay attention to how your body responds. If coffee makes fasting easier without anxiety or crashes, it may support your routine. If it increases stress and hunger, consider reducing or delaying it further. Coffee is a tool. Used wisely, it can enhance alertness and fat oxidation. Used aggressively, it can elevate stress and undermine stability. Tell me in the comments, how do you usually prepare your coffee while fasting? Share your experience with me and other viewers. Now, let's talk about the third drink people constantly ask me about: apple cider vinegar. You've probably heard dramatic claims that it melts fat, detoxifies the body, and transforms your metabolism overnight. Let's calm that down. Apple cider vinegar is not magic, but it is physiologically interesting. A small amount, about 1 tablespoon diluted in water, contains acetic acid. Acetic acid has been shown in studies to modestly improve insulin sensitivity and reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes when taken before eating. But here's the key: it does not significantly raise insulin when taken alone in water. In a fasted state, diluted apple cider vinegar does not meaningfully break your fast. It does not activate mTOR. It does not switch the body back into growth mode. Instead, it may slightly improve the way your body handles glucose later in the day. That's where its benefit lies. If you consume apple cider vinegar during your fasting window, especially in the morning, it may help stabilize blood sugar once you break the fast. It can slow gastric emptying slightly and improve insulin response to the first meal. Again, subtle, not dramatic. Now, let's connect this back to autophagy. Autophagy requires low insulin and low nutrient signaling. Apple cider vinegar does not provide calories or protein that would stimulate those growth pathways. So, from a cellular repair standpoint, it does not interrupt the fasting state in a meaningful way. But I want you to be careful. Apple cider vinegar is acidic. Undiluted, it can damage tooth enamel and irritate the esophagus. It must always be diluted in water. And if you have reflux, ulcers, or certain gastrointestinal sensitivities, it may not be appropriate for you. Remember, the goal is metabolic stability, not irritation. There is also some emerging research suggesting that vinegar may influence gut bacteria in modest ways. The gut microbiome plays a central role in inflammation, insulin resistance, and visceral fat accumulation. When you fast, you are already giving your gut time to rest and reset. Adding apple cider vinegar may offer small additional support, but it cannot compensate for poor diet or chronic stress. So, here are your three drinks: water with lemon, diluted apple cider vinegar, and black coffee used strategically. All of them work not because they are powerful stimulants, but because they preserve a low insulin, repair friendly environment. They support fasting without hijacking it. Now, let me show you how this actually works in real life, because fasting success is rarely about a single drink. It's about the sequence of signals you send your body in the first few hours of the day. You wake up, cortisol rises naturally, insulin is low, growth pathways are quiet. This is a beautiful biological window. The first step is hydration: a large glass of water, optionally with a squeeze of lemon or diluted apple cider vinegar. This restores plasma volume, supports kidney filtration, and helps the body transition smoothly out of sleep. Hydration alone can reduce perceived hunger and improve mental clarity. Then comes something even more powerful than any beverage: light movement. A gentle walk, stretching, sunlight exposure, nothing intense, just forward motion. This enhances insulin sensitivity and accelerates the transition from glycogen use to fat oxidation. When you move in a fasted state, you encourage your muscles to burn stored glucose first. As glycogen levels drop, the body increasingly relies on fatty acids. This is where visceral fat begins to become metabolically vulnerable. Now, let's return to coffee. If you delay caffeine until after hydration and light movement, you avoid stacking stress signals. Instead of amplifying cortisol, you're supporting alertness on top of a stable hormonal foundation. That's a very different physiological experience. Now, here's something important about autophagy. Autophagy is not an on off switch, it's a spectrum. It increases as insulin falls and nutrient signaling decreases. It is enhanced by fasting, movement, and low inflammation. It is suppressed by constant feeding, excess protein, and elevated insulin. Your morning routine either nudges you toward repair mode or back into growth mode. If you hydrate, move gently, delay caffeine slightly, and extend your fasting window to at least 14 to 16 hours, you create a metabolic environment where insulin stays low, fat burning increases, ketone production begins, and autophagy quietly activates. Your gut benefits as well. Frequent eating keeps the digestive system constantly active. Fasting gives the migrating motor complex time to sweep residual debris and bacteria from the small intestine. This reduces bloating and improves microbial balance over time. Blood sugar control improves because insulin receptors get a break. Instead of constant stimulation, they regain sensitivity. All of this happens without extreme restriction. It happens through rhythm. Now, I'll show you how to combine fasting windows, drink timing, meal sequencing, and movement into a simple, sustainable daily framework that supports long term metabolic balance rather than short term dieting. Because a successful fasting day does not begin with willpower, it begins with rhythm. You wake up, you hydrate, you do not touch your phone or your laptop for the next 2 hours. This allows your natural cortisol curve to rise and fall without artificial spikes. You move gently. You expose yourself to natural light. You delay caffeine slightly instead of stacking it on top of stress. Then you allow time to pass. That time is not empty, it is metabolically active. During the fasting window, insulin remains low. Glycogen stores gradually deplete. The body shifts toward fat oxidation. Ketones begin to rise, autophagy increases quietly in the background, clearing damaged cellular components and recycling inefficient mitochondria. Think of it this way: when you are constantly eating, your cells are like a factory running at full production speed. There is no time to repair the machinery, there is no time to remove broken parts. Production never stops. Fasting is a scheduled maintenance period. You turn down production, you clean the floor. You repair the engines, you remove defective parts. When feeding resumes later, the system runs more efficiently. That is metabolic intelligence. Now, let's talk about breaking the fast. How you break your fast determines how stable the rest of your day will be. If you break a fast with refined carbohydrates or sugar, insulin will spike sharply. Blood glucose will rise quickly and fall quickly. Hunger may return sooner than expected. Instead, I recommend beginning with protein and fiber. This stabilizes blood sugar. It creates a slower insulin response. It supports satiety and preserves the metabolic gains of the fasting window. Meal sequencing matters. Protein first, vegetables and fiber next, carbohydrates last, if included. This simple order can blunt glucose spikes and improve insulin control significantly. The goal is not to eliminate carbohydrates entirely. The goal is to prevent dramatic hormonal swings. When your meals are stable, your fasting windows become easier. And when fasting becomes easier, it becomes sustainable. Sustainability is everything. You do not need 24-hour fasts every day. You do not need extreme restriction. A consistent 14 to 16-hour window, supported by clean hydration, mindful coffee timing, light movement, and structured meals, is powerful enough for most people. Over time, visceral fat decreases, blood sugar stabilizes, energy improves, inflammation lowers, not because of a miracle drink, but because your hormones are finally working in your favor. So now let me bring this all together in a way that is simple, practical, and grounded in physiology rather than hype. Fasting works because it lowers insulin long enough for the body to shift from storage mode into repair mode. When insulin is low, fat burning increases, ketones rise, and autophagy begins its quiet cellular cleanup. That is the foundation. The drinks we discuss do not create that state, they protect it. When you wake up and hydrate first, you stabilize circulation and reduce unnecessary stress signals. When you delay coffee slightly, you respect your natural cortisol rhythm instead of overwhelming it. When you use black coffee strategically, it can enhance alertness and even support fat oxidation without meaningfully raising insulin. A squeeze of lemon in water may gently support digestion. Diluted apple cider vinegar may modestly improve insulin sensitivity and blunt post meal glucose spikes later in the day. None of these are magic, they are supportive. The real power comes from the sequence: hydrate, move lightly, delay caffeine, maintain your fasting window, break the fast with protein and fiber first. That sequence protects low insulin, stabilizes blood sugar, supports gut motility, and allows autophagy to do its work. Remember, autophagy is not a dramatic event you feel, it is a subtle cellular process. It is your body recycling damaged components, clearing dysfunctional mitochondria, and resetting metabolic pathways. It does not require suffering, it requires space. Constant snacking eliminates that space. Sweetened drinks eliminate that space. Cream filled coffee eliminates that space. Simplicity restores it. If your goal is visceral fat loss, metabolic balance, and long term energy, focus less on chasing perfect fasting purity and more on maintaining hormonal stability. Fasting is not a contest of endurance, it is a rhythm. When the rhythm is consistent, daily hydration, structured fasting window, calm caffeine use, intentional meal sequencing, your body adapts. Insulin sensitivity improves, hunger becomes appropriate rather than constant, energy stabilizes, inflammation decreases, fat loss becomes a side effect. That is what we want. Not extremes, not obsession, not biohacking for the sake of novelty, just steady biological alignment. So, tomorrow morning, before you reach for anything sweet or creamy, and especially your phone, please take a pause. Hydrate first. Respect your hormones. Give your body the space it needs to repair. When you work with your biology instead of fighting it, the results become sustainable. And that is where true metabolic health begins. Now, if you've watched my full lecture today, I would genuinely appreciate your attention and support. Please go right now to the comment section and comment, I stayed till end. And also tell me what was the one best thing you learned today. I'd love to hear that. And if you think today's lecture was beneficial and informative, please make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and share it with someone you care about. Thanks for joining me in today's session. Take care of your body, and I'll see you in the next lecture.